In this episode of the Red and Gold Report, we're going to be breaking down the Chiefs' win against the Broncos on Sunday night. We're going to be looking at why I think that announcer Cris Collinsworth was hitting the hard eggnog during the game, and we're going to be looking at the recent Chiefs news out of Chiefs Kingdom. So the storyline of the game on Sunday was one of four completely different quarters. In the first quarter, it was pretty much like what you would expect as a Chiefs fan. I mean, the last time the Chiefs lost to the Broncos was in 2015 when Barack was president and Alex Smith was playing QB for the Chiefs. The Broncos went 3 and out, and the Chiefs drove down for a touchdown to open the game. And then later, after Harrison Butker kicked the doink ball just inside the uprights, well, the Chiefs found themselves up 10-0 to open the game, and it was starting just like you would expect. But the second quarter was a totally different story. The Broncos decided that the best strategy was to just not allow Mahomes to be in the football game. So the orange smoothie ponies possessed the ball essentially for the entire second quarter. They had a 20-play, 14-minute drive, just the whole second half. The only problem was nobody remembered to tell the Broncos that, the point was that they had to score points. So after a dumb call to go for it on fourth down in the Chiefs red zone, the Orange Crush Ponies came away with 0 points for a drive that essentially took the entire second quarter. But then again, things changed in the third quarter when the teams apparently had a handshake deal to let us all go bake sugar cookies because, well, absolutely nothing happened all quarter long. So it came down to the fourth quarter to make or break the game. The Chiefs offense continued to struggle, but the Broncos quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, showed why he's just a bridge to another future QB for the Denver squad, and the game ended with the Chiefs on top, even though only 24 cumulative points have been scored by both offenses combined in the game, and even though the Chiefs offense, they only scored 15 points. So with that four-quarter storyline in mind, well, who are the specific players for the Chiefs who played particularly well in the game? Well, a huge positive for the Chiefs was the offensive line play, specifically in pass protection. The line only allowed one pressure all night. One pressure, and that was from backup right tackle Andrew Wiley. So the offensive line, they were fantastic. Backup running back Daryl Williams also had a good outing. Williams actually led the Chiefs with 60 receiving yards. Yeah, running back, including a 38-yard down the field reception. He also added 20 yards on the ground. Also having a good game, happy to see this one, is linebacker Willie Gay. Willie had 8 tackles, a half a sack, a tackle for loss, and a pass deflected. He was also the one who had the huge stop on fourth down to leave the big second quarter Broncos drive totally scoreless. Defensive end Melvin Ingram also played well. He had a tackle for loss on the second play of the game, a sack on the third play of the game, and I counted 2 other pressures. I was pushing for the Chiefs to sign him when he was still a free agent, and then pushing for them to trade for him as they later did, and man, this move has paid off for the Chiefs. Safety Juan Thornhill had a great game. He had a nice tackle to start the game, 6 tackles to finish the game, and an interception in the third quarter. Also, Daniel Sorensen had a good game. I mean, he had the long, awesome pick 6 and stopped the Broncos on a 2-point conversion. On 26 coverage snaps, he didn't allow a catch. Sorensen had one of the worst all-time starts of a season for any Chiefs defender this year. But here's the thing. After finally being ousted from safety, maybe there is some sort of role for him at linebacker. Defensive tackle Chris Jones played well, with 5 pressures on only 32 pass rushing plays. He also had a batted pass and a forced fumble. Also, the Chiefs defensive backs played well as a unit overall, shutting down what's actually a pretty talented Broncos receiving corps. So those are the positives on Sunday night, which brings us to the negatives. And wow, the worst negative of the game was announcer Cris Collinsworth. Look, I gotta admit, I am usually a fan of Cris, okay? But Sunday night, he was so awful that I just have to assume he was hitting the hard eggnog during the game. I mean, he was speaking utter nonsense. He had to be drinking. At one point in the game, Collinsworth stated that L'Jarius Sneed helped the Chiefs on their Super Bowl run, even though he wasn't even drafted until the next draft. He wasn't even in the league that year. At another point, Collinsworth said that linebacker Anthony Hitchens was one of the best tacklers in the league, even though he is consistently graded as one of the worst defenders in the entire NFL for years. At another point during the game, Cris Collinsworth started going off about the Lions for some reason and said they're a real tough football team and a heavyweight fight, even though they have the worst record in the league. At another point, he said that the Broncos' left tackle had been out with a COVID injury, which I'm pretty sure COVID is an illness, not an injury. Look, I like Collinsworth, but dude was either drinking before the game or he was utterly phoning it in. Either way, NBC, if you need an announcer that'll work for 1% of Chris's pay, I'm available pretty much every Sunday night. But who played poorly for the Chiefs? Well, okay, I hate to mention it, but Patrick Mahomes was just plain off on Sunday night. I love Mahomes. I mean, seriously, I am a grown man with a Patrick Mahomes action figure. I'm a fan. But he was just playing off. And it was way more than the bad wind and the dropped passes. Mahomes played an undisciplined game. His footwork was a mess all night. He was throwing from different angles when he didn't have to be. He was throwing without touch on a few plays, and he was placing balls often behind receivers. He was just inaccurate. He ended the night 15 for 29 with only 184 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. But to improve, Mahomes needs to become more disciplined to increase his accuracy. Another player who played poorly was linebacker Anthony Hitchens. If you're wondering why the Broncos could consistently run the ball inside so well that they essentially had the ball the entire second quarter, we'll look no further than 53. Hitchens kept jumping on the wrong side of blocks, and he had a number of missed tackles. He had a blown coverage at the end of the first quarter that was ugly, and then he had just a plain stupid personal foul on a clearly illegal, dirty hit after an interception in the third quarter. Defense end Frank Clark also played poorly. He had 0 sacks, but he did have an offsides penalty in the fourth quarter. Moving on, here's a few different insights that you may have missed while watching the game. One insight not to miss is this. The national sports media has now ordained this whole narrative that the Chiefs' defense has had a miraculous worst to first rebirth during the last 5 weeks. Now, I'm super hopeful that this is the case, and I absolutely believe the defense has improved. But we need a little healthy skepticism here. I mean, yes, the defense has gotten better. They're playing better. They've made some necessary changes, but this is not a top defense in the league. Here's how I know. Over the last 5 weeks, it isn't just that the Chiefs defense is playing well. It's that the offenses we're playing have been playing awful. Now, we played a bad Giants offense without Saquon Barkley, Kenny Golladay. We played a Packers offense without Aaron Rodgers. We played a Raiders offense reeling from losing their top receiver and head coach from off-field issues. We played a Cowboys offense without 3 of their top players. And we played a Broncos offense led by a quarterback that their own fan base wants to tar and feather. So I'm hopeful, yes. And I know they've improved, but this pumped the brakes on this whole narrative that they're suddenly one of the best defenses in the league. They're probably more middle of the road, which, hey, is still a big improvement. Another insight not to miss is that the team was trying to force the ball on Sunday night to running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde touched the ball 17 times on Sunday, twice as much as any other Chiefs offensive player. And here's the thing. There are a lot of plays where Clyde, he looks shifty. He looks like he's got this low center of gravity. And you're like, oh yeah, I like this guy. And then there's all these other plays where he lacks any vision. He just kind of runs into defenders and he doesn't show a lot of speed or strength. He's struggling, so the team isn't giving the ball 30 times a game. But they also know they need a running game, so they're giving the ball to him far too many times at the same time. It's an interesting predicament to be watching as the season continues to unfold. Also, an insight you may have missed, the 2 leading receivers for the Chiefs on Sunday night were both running backs. Right now, the Chiefs offense is facing 2 deep safeties more than a quarter of the time more often than the average league offense faces. So, of course, we're dumping the ball off. But I'd really like to see that commitment to getting back to the running game by the Chiefs. With those insights in mind, let's turn to Chiefs news. First off, Mike Hughes has officially taken over from Mecole Hardman as the primary punt returner. With this being Hardman's 3rd year in the league, it was supposed to be his breakout year, but instead he's just kind of failed to stick out this season in positive ways. You got to be curious about what's going to happen to him in his future with the Chiefs. In other news, with this Chiefs win, all the AFC division leaders are now 8-4. This is kind of rare, and it means that even after a bad start, the Chiefs are right in it, not just to win the division, but they could still win the entire conference. They also have an awesome winning streak going right now with 5 games. In other news, offensive lineman Kyle Long returned from injured reserve last week. Long was a former All-Pro who struggled through years of injury, and then he actually retired for a season before joining the Chiefs last offseason and getting hurt during the offseason. Yet again, while I really like Long, the Chiefs have 2 of the best guards right now in the entire league. So there's no real role for him inside other than as a backup. And he's spent almost all of his career at guard. However, he did play the 2015 season at right tackle. So with the Chiefs' 2 injuries at the right tackle position, I would love to see the team experiment with shifting him to right tackle and see if he can beat out Andrew Wiley there. And last in Chiefs news, this Sunday, the Raiders are coming to Arrowhead to accept their obligatory defeat. That's it for this week's episode of the Red and Gold Report. Take a second to hit the like and subscribe buttons, all the buttons below the video. Thanks for watching, and go Chiefs!